As you probably know right now, the great Muhammad Ali has passed away a few days ago, and I pulled some things up, and literally there's three lessons here that I wanted to share with you because they really impacted me. And lesson number one that he talked about, he backs it up with a quote. He talks about suffer now and reap the rewards later. And the quote is, "I run on the road long before I dance under the lights. I hated every minute of training, but I said, don't quit. Suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion." You know, another good friend of mine, Dr. Jeffrey Spencer, he talks about do the homework and the test is easy. You know, we've also heard the harder you work now, the less you bleed in battle. And it's one of those things that's just a powerful thing in life, and just a reminder of something you probably already know, or maybe bringing it up to the surface that, if we want to be great like Muhammad Ali is, there's a lot of in the dark type of training. There's a lot of extra hours and extra time that we're putting in that people aren't going to see. But it does show up when you get on stage. It does show up when you get in the ring. It does show up in the boardroom. And I think it's important, and that's a huge lesson that we've all learned from him, and a lesson that we all need to be reminded of. The second thing he said, the second lesson, was embrace change. And he said this, he says, "A man who views the world the same at 50 as he did at 20 has wasted 30 years of his life." You know, I think it's important that, when you hear people say, I've been doing that for 29 years, have they really been doing it for 29 years, or have they been repeating the same year 29 times in a row, right? And I think it's important that we invest, the first 28 years into the 29th, and then those 29 into the 30th. And so I think as we grow as human beings, it is important to embrace change. And I think that obviously easier said than done, but that's what's happening in the world right now. I mean, heck, there's 3 billion more people coming on the internet over the next 3 years that were not even on the internet. Things are changing, more ideas, things are happening faster, right? Because of the digital age, things are happening at the speed of Twitter, right? And so I think it's important that whether our heyday was in the 80s or the 70s or the early 90s or the early 2000s, we have to continue to change with the times. We have to stay fresh. We have to be flexible. We have to be nimble in our thinking, okay? I think one of the things that makes people old, I'm not saying like their outer skin. What makes people old is they're stuck in their ways of thinking. And I think I've met people that are 70, 80 years old, but they're so fresh in their thinking, they seem so youthful and they seem so young, right? So if you're the type of person that wants to stay young, I think it's important that we embrace change, right? And the third lesson that he talked about was imagination is everything. He's got a short quote for this one. Muhammad Ali says, "The man who has no imagination has no wings." I mean, I remember when I was as a little boy, I always dreamed and thought of flying. I mean, my 4-year-old son Harrison, he's told me about some dreams he's already had about flying. And I think that being able just to imagine yourself flying over your city or over the ocean or through the clouds is something that maybe we don't do enough of. Imagining yourself in front of a big crowd, if that's what you want to do, delivering an impactful message, imagining yourself having that conversation with your future kids or your future spouse or your business partner. Maybe you're having a crucial conversation that needs to happen with one of your business partners, and you need to imagine how that conversation could go in many different ways, almost role play and prepare for that. But I think imagination is so key because it allows us to exercise our vision, right? Like Walt Disney, I mean, it's been said, I'm sure you heard before, the reporters were standing next to, I think it was, and I apologize for not saying this probably correctly, but the reporters were basically saying, I wish Walt Disney was here to see the opening of his park. And they were like, he already saw it like way before we did. I mean, that's why it's here, because he saw it. He saw it here. See, things are done twice. They're thought about in the mind, and then they're created, right? When you hear a song, when you see a painting, when you see anything that's been created, it had to be created here first. It had to be imagined first with no limitations, and then put to software or hands or whatever to build it physically, right? And so I think that's something that we need to do more of, is really exercise our imaginations. And so just to repeat those 3 lessons from Muhammad Ali, suffer. Lesson number 1 is suffer now, reap the rewards later. Lesson number 2 is embrace change. Lesson number 3 is imagination is everything. And I hope this helps you arrive at your next intended destination healthy, wealthy, and happy.